Hello and welcome back to the Cinema Club podcast. I am your host, Nick Leach, and today we're going to be diving into episode 7 of HBO's The Last of Us. If this is your first time to the podcast, the Cinema Club is like a book club, but for movies. Every episode, I invite one member of the Cinema Club to be my co-host, who will choose the movie of the episode and join me on the podcast to talk about that film or TV show. And just to be completely clear, before we get any further, I want to give a big spoiler warning because we are going to be talking about anything and everything about this episode. So if you haven't already watched this episode or the season so far, go ahead and do that before going any further. So with that, enjoy.
You don't fight. Your friend fights. She's not here anymore.
You follow the rules, you become an officer. We're the only thing holding this all together.
Riley, where have you been? I will tell you everything. You have to come with me for a few hours. You trust me, right? Open your eyes. Tonight, I'm gonna show you the 4 wonders of the mall.
If you come back, we could be running things. We're like the future.
You're a firefly? Yes, Ellie, put it down.
None of this shit was even about me.
Ellie! Get ready to run.
And we're back again with Chris and Paige. Welcome back, guys. I'm excited to talk to you this week about this episode. This is a special one.
Absolutely. We get to, have a better understanding of Ellie, who she is and why she is the person she's become. It's a really big character building episode of Ellie.
Yeah, I was so excited for this episode to come out because I really enjoyed the DLC that came out with the first part of The Last of Us. And I knew it was going to be heartfelt. And even though it was kind of the slower episode, but everyone's saying it's a filler or it's just boring, I enjoyed it so much.
I mean, everybody knows I'm the guy that's always says filler episode, but this is the one time I'm going to say absolutely not. This was one of the stronger episodes I thought of this season. Kind of what I was saying last week in just all the emotional beats being just as impactful as the action beats. I think this episode does that as well and does probably even better, I think, than even last week's episode in just hitting all the emotional beats that you want to hit. Before we get into everything, I just wanted to make a little amendment, a little update from our episode last week. The first one kind of talking about those in-camera mistakes that we kind of talked about with the people on the bridge. So Naughty Dog Twitter account posted this last week that HBO has quietly fixed apparently the 2 mistakes and updated the episode on their streaming platform for episode 6. It was that crew on the bridge shot, and then there was also a shot of a crew member's hand actually holding on to Shimmer to keep the horse in position. So those have been updated. So if you haven't seen the episode or saw the episode after our episode last week, that's been updated. The other one is kind of also talking about the kind of explicit language that Ellie has. So I dug into Bella Ramsey just a little bit more, and Bella Ramsey is actually an avid and active Christian and even has an inspirational YouTube channel called United Hope, where she can be seen playing her guitar and singing worship music. So that kind of plays into a little bit more kind of her uncomfortable, what I kind of called out as what came out of her upbringing, similar to Chris and I. So just wanted those 2 things to be an update before we get into the episode. Episode 7 starts only hours after where we left off last episode, with the trail of blood left from Ellie dragging Joel into an abandoned house and into the basement. Joel, having been stabbed in the stomach, insists that Ellie leave him. Pushing her away, we see a tear roll down Joel's face as Ellie stomps up the stairs, stopping momentarily at the door. In that moment, as her hand is reaching for the door, Ellie's mind transports her back years before to when she was a student in a Fedra school back in Boston. Before we really dive into this section, I wanted to ask both of you guys, as somebody who didn't play the games, as somebody who's new to this franchise, where did this story of Ellie and Riley come from? I mean, is it an original storyline? Was it in the show?
They follow the DLC fairly closely, actually. I don't really know the more of the backstory between Riley and Ellie about like the Fedra and them being like roommates or whatever. But I know like the mall scene and everything was pretty one-on-one accurate, I would say.
Yes. So DLC is the digital content, as Paige was saying, that you can download outside of the actual game that you purchase. So it's only available as an online purchase, typically through like the PlayStation Store, for example. So it's not something that's included in the initial game you purchase. You do have to pay a little extra to get that DLC, which a lot of times is something that really adds to the game, as we really see in this story. This is the whole, backstory of Ellie before she gets to meet Joel and Tess. And I really enjoy DLCs for the most part. Usually, like if anybody's ever played the Horizon games, that DLC is great. They're making a new one for the new game. Love them. But yeah, and then also the comic book, there wasn't really anything they were taking from the comic book too much here, except I think they're kind of playing around a little bit with, in the comic book, Ellie and Riley are sneaking around at night a lot on the streets. And that's something that they were kind of exploring a little bit here as well. But for the most part, this episode was definitely based more so on the DLC. I really enjoyed, like you said, that detail where Joel's telling her, get out of here, go find Tommy, leave me. And then as Bella Ramsey's character, Elliot, is going up those stairs, like you said, like we see that single tear come down Joel's face.
It's such a powerful moment because
it is, yeah.
Like Ellie is not a doctor. She's nowhere near getting any help, and Joel is dying. So she's not equipped to save him. And I mean, she would do anything for Joel, and Joel knows that. And so in his refusal of her, that really is him like remembering what she said when she said, "If you die, I'm fucked." He knows that, and so he knows the best thing, at least in his mind, the best way for him to save her is for her to leave him to die.
And I think at least what I'm doing in my mind is connecting this moment to the moment in the previous episode in the stable, where again, like I kind of said in our previous episode breakdown, like she's saying, "You're my person." I think we again get that reinforced when she has that flashback sequence.
And I think we as an audience are also thinking in the back of our minds, what would have happened if she had actually gone with Tommy? Like, would Tommy have been a better person to have been able to save her? Would Tommy have gotten himself stabbed? Is Joel really the best person to protect her?
I don't think she even cares if he can protect her or not. She just genuinely loves and cares for him. So I think that is what's driving her.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, because that's the only person that she has, as we get to see. Like this is the only person that she has in the world is Joel. So she's going to do everything she can to help him, as we'll see in episode 8 as well.
The other part I wanted to just briefly talk about too is that originally episode 7 was only going to be the story of Ellie and Riley and just be a standalone flashback and have nothing really to do, kind of give us as an audience a break from and really extend the cliffhanger of what's happening to Joel. But it was, again, the executives from HBO stepped in and suggested to connect it back more to the story of Joel and Ellie. And personally, that was 100% the right choice, because it just makes everything that happens in this episode mean so much more. And actually, when you go back and watch the rest of the season, knowing this information, it makes it a completely different watch through, because when Joel meets Ellie, it isn't Joel that is dealing with the loss of somebody he loves. Ellie is fresh off of Riley being what happens to Riley. So Ellie is running laps around a gym, listening to Pearl Jam on her Walkman. Her headphones are ripped off of her head by another girl, which prompts Ellie to lash out and attack her. Ellie is brought before Captain Kwong, and he implores her to behave. as her mind is best suited for leadership within Fedra if she can just push down her rebellious attitude. Ellie gives in and settles down for a quiet night, but her sleep is interrupted by an intruder sneaking in through her window. I've said it before, but I'm going to say it again. One thing I love about this show is that it isn't black and white. It really delves into the grays. The bad guys aren't just bad. The good guys aren't just good. And what we see here when she talks to Captain Kwong is that Fedra really are the ones who have been keeping everything together. And he even admits to some of the wrong things that they have done in the past. But it's up to the next generation. It's Ellie's generation to come in and fix the problems and make it better. And that Ellie can be one of the people if she just shaped up. She's just not living up to her potential. And that's such a, like, if you were ever the bad kid in school, having somebody tell you you're not living up to your potential, oh, that's so frustrating.
I really enjoyed, it's kind of like, obviously Captain Kwong is the principal main man of this school basic training camp for children. I do like the organization that they have, but it's, to me, was so brainwashing to these kids, and all they want to do is be kids. And knowing that Riley was going to be like a sewage, not protector, but like in charge of the sewage.
In charge of the sewage workers, basically guarding the people that were
Like supervising. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter if Ellie's doing good or bad. They're going to put them wherever they need them. It's not like you get to pick your job. So it was a bad brainwashing event, and I'm glad Riley ran away.
It's very reminiscent of Hitler Youth, honestly.
Oh, yeah. I had a similar thought process. But, like you're saying, Nick, I like that we really get to see this Fedra officer coming from a place where he really believes in their mission, and we as an audience have gotten to see, what happens when Fedra isn't in charge in Kansas City, and what everything with the shit, basically, with Kathleen in charge in like 10 days. But also there was a little Easter egg. I don't know if you guys caught it or not, but when the Fedra officer is, he's taking back that picture of his kids because Ellie's being nosy, and he's putting his keychain, his keys on the desk. We do see a Naughty Dog branded keychain, which is the game developer for The Last of Us. I caught that on his keychain. So I thought that was pretty cool. Major Easter egg, though. I almost missed it. And then, I really like, kind of backing up a little bit more, like, Bethany, that girl in the gym, she really underestimates Ellie, but at the mention of Riley, who Ellie loves and cares about, obviously, a lot, it kind of unleashes all of Ellie's demons onto this chick Bethany, and, gives her 15 stitches. Lord knows what happened.
I know it again, this episode, like, watching this just changes completely how I watch the rest of the show, especially at the beginning. I mean, it's when Ellie first sees Joel beating that Fedra guy to a pulp, she was activated. And we see why now. She recognizes something in him that is inherently a part of her that she can't control either.
I think that's, why they have that connection is there is a lot of Ellie and Joel, a lot of Joel and Ellie. And I think it's more of the, I don't know if I want to say like animalistic aspect or protective animalistic aspect, but they both share that a lot. And then, I did like how they filmed Riley coming in through the window. It was very it reminded me of like Spider-Man or like Peter Pan coming to the window. So I liked how they did that a lot.
I thought our introduction to Riley was really cool. So let's get into that. Ellie is woken up by the intruder's hand over her mouth, and Ellie kicks them off and whips out her knife. The intruder turns out to be Ellie's former roommate and best friend, Riley. Riley reveals that she ran away and was recruited to be part of the Fireflies, and she has something to show Ellie. Reluctantly and cautiously, Ellie follows Riley out and down to the streets where they dodge patrols and jump over rooftops to make it to Riley's surprise, along the way finding a bottle of alcohol that they share together.
I don't know if when they were roommates, when she ran away, she just took all of her stuff down. I'm talking about Riley. And then compared to Ellie's room, or Ellie's side of the room, You could see her personality just put on the walls when they were like panning and she's just laying down with the Mortal Kombat, which I thought was cool.
No, yeah, but I liked that, Ellie's bedroom wall, it had, the Mortal Kombat 2. It had a lot of like space posters. It had like zoo animals, which we'll maybe see in season 2 a little bit about what she likes that. But yeah, it was her interests up there.
I mean, those space posters and everything, those were deep cuts. Those weren't just regular, like, here's obviously she's into space. It was like Red Planet and shit.
This has nothing to do with like the storyline, but I honestly had no idea how short Bella Ramsey is until she's standing right next to Bethany or Riley. And I'm like, wow, you're a tiny girl. I mean, that's fine. I just had no idea. It was the rest of the show, you just didn't know it.
You notice it.
Well, like, it just goes to show why she has to be so feisty. People underestimate her, have always underestimated her, and they don't understand the violence that she is capable of until we see what she did to Bethany. Like 14 stitches, that's a lot.
I don't know if one punch and got 14 stitches or she just kept going. We don't know.
Yeah, I think she beat the shit out of her, honestly. But something else in the room that I liked is it's a quick shot of the few cassette tapes on Ellie's desk. And one of those tapes is an album by the 80s group a-ha. In The Last of Us Part 2, Ellie plays plays and sings Take On Me, which again, the show has established 80s means trouble or, danger lurks ahead. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then, later on, we also see that one of the cassettes is something that is played, in a later scene too, which I like that.
Well, a-ha's Take On Me is played too, and later on while they're going down
the
escalator. Also,
that's
then
true.
Later on, the other one is The Cure's Just Like Heaven, which is another 80s song, like you're saying, meaning danger. Yeah, there's the music that they have chosen for this entire show has just been so spot on. And I mean, even the lyrics for all of these, I mean, Pearl Jam, the lyrics to that perfectly like emphasize what is going on with Ellie. All of it has just been so perfect.
Yeah, I agree. And then, I also liked the whole sequence of events of them jumping from rooftop to rooftop, getting to the mall. Ellie handles a gun probably for the first time there. And then it was a little bit different than the game. In the game, there's like a character where he had some alcohol that he had left, I think. But in the show, that guy took a bunch of pills and he had some leftover whiskey, which again is a reference to, one of the other episodes, Ellie tastes, I think it's whiskey, and she's like, oh, it's still gross. It was from this scene where that guy just falls to the floor. Just another Friday night,
What I liked about that was the way that they did the makeup on him. You're wondering when this guy's going to wake up and start just going after them, because it does look like he's turned. But that isn't actually fungus coming from his mouth. It's just dried vomit. So that was from the fact that he overdosed. So I thought that was an interesting detail, added to the tension, added to what's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know if all pills look alike in the apocalypse, but they did look very similar to the ones Joel was dealing in episode 1 as well.
Ellie and Riley crawl down a hole into an electrical room, and Riley commands Ellie to go ahead of her. Ellie cautiously creeps down a hallway and through some doors, and suddenly Riley flips on the electricity and Ellie finds herself in an abandoned mall. For once, Ellie is silent, in awe of the beginning of the best night of her life. Riley surprises showing Ellie the 4 wonders of the mall. So a little behind the scenes, this mall that they shot in Calgary was a mall that was abandoned and scheduled to be demolished. However, it was only one story and only one side was there, an escalator to a second floor. So what they ended up doing is they used VFX to extend the entire mall, because Craig Mazin's whole idea for this is that he wanted Ellie to experience something that he experienced back when he was a kid, being that back in the 80s, the best and most magical place, and really one of the rites of passage of being a teenager, was the mall. And so he wanted Ellie to be able to experience something magical, something that we really do take for granted, the magical place of our youth that is the mall. But to do that, they had to connect it back to a world that we know, and the world that we know are where the malls, like, they have two stories, I guess. Interesting little detail, but he's totally right. It would not have captured that really nostalgic mall feeling if it had just been one story. So that was really interesting behind the scenes. But we're at the mall now. This was an amazing sequence to start off. Really great way to start. I mean, that shot is one of the iconic shots of the show, of just the lights turning on and revealing this mall.
Yeah, I loved that whole shot when like the lights just like turn on, boom, 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 and you can really see the awe and wonder of someone experiencing like that for the first time. I'm really glad that they decide to do the 2-level, because just visually it looks stunning from all the way back in the mall, and Ellie just viewing it all from that shot. That was my favorite shot of the whole episode, honestly.
Same. So the pair ride down the escalator to the main floor and walk by the abandoned shops, stopping in front of Victoria's Secret to playfully joke with each other, Ellie pausing for a moment to look at herself in the reflection. Further down, Riley takes Ellie's hand and tells her to close her eyes, leading her to the first wonder of the mall, a working carousel. The two ride the carousel together, and Ellie pushes Riley about her involvement with the Fireflies.
I really enjoyed basically this whole episode of getting to see Ellie experience everything for the first time, like an escalator. Like that was like, Riley was like, okay, now it's going to be the 5 wonders of the mall. Cool, whatever. You know, she was like just enjoying the hell out of that escalator for like a good 3 minutes there. And it's like those little things where, you know, if the world did end tomorrow, we would look back and be like, oh, wow, like we took all those things for granted, you know? But I also like that the people who love Ellie, and this is something that is in the games too, but people who love and care about Ellie, they want to show her things because Ellie appreciates things, and especially appreciates things from the old world. And so Riley is sharing something that she loves with Ellie. And I would just think like, oh, it's like when I get excited about something and I want to share it with someone and want to watch them experience it for the first time. We really, you know, not only are seeing Ellie experience it, but we get to see Riley watching Ellie experience it, which I think is really special.
I love the escalator part, especially when the Take On Me song was playing, and the pure joy that I had watching her just spin in circles and go up and down. It was probably one of my favorite moments of the episode.
Yeah, because we're kind of reminded that they are kids, you know, in this crazy world. And then I really love the merry-go-round, because that was straight out of the game. Like, just like the way it looked, the lighting, like everything. I loved it.
And there's the part of this where Ellie just forgets where she is. There's just such a magic about this carousel to her that she completely just is won over by the magic of it all and almost forgets where she is, and also almost forgets that she is very guarded with her feelings towards this person. There's so many times where you can just see it in Bella Ramsey's performance. You can just see that Ellie wants to tell Riley that she loves her. And that's something that Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin brought up that I thought was a really important point in the official podcast. The world ended in 2003, and the world in 2003 is a very different world, especially when it comes to homosexuality. I mean, this is a world that ended, and when they ended, the socially accepted ideals and norms ended at that point as well. And so it's in that world, even though it's 20 years later, it's safe to say that probably homosexuality is a bit of a taboo subject. And we really do see that here with Ellie and her apprehension, because there's clearly something that's holding her back. It isn't just, oh, I hope this person across from me reciprocates my feelings. It isn't just that. It's that she's afraid that this person that she loves, if she were to tell her and the feelings weren't reciprocated, this person may just completely not want anything to do with her going forward. And that's something that was brought up in the podcast episode, that when Craig Mazin really was doing the research for this show, he really went and he talked to a lot of queer consultants for the show. I said that earlier in episode 3 as well. But one aspect that was brought up was that fear that queer people face, especially in adolescence, when they have to really weigh how that other person that they are interested in would react. And is it worth the possibility of losing that person closest to you because they don't accept who you are, let alone reciprocating the feelings? Is it worth potentially losing that person forever? And Ellie is going through that. And even though Riley is joking, especially when they're standing in front of like the Victoria's Secret, she's just joking, maybe what would this look like on you? Whatever. Ellie almost takes that as a rejection in that moment. And so it just makes her even more scared to actually let her feelings be known.
That part in front of Victoria's Secret, I mean, it's totally true. I remember being young and I'm looking in the window and I'm like, damn, they actually wear those things. And I got personally scared because I'm like, I'm uncomfortable. I'm very uncomfortable at the moment, but now I know why.
I mean, Victoria's Secret, especially back in 2003, and I mean, this is a basically window from 2003 of what Victoria's Secret might have been showcases in their window. It's such a heteronormative way of marketing because it's marketing to men. That's all that they're doing, is they're marketing this clothing to men. They're not even thinking about the woman really in that situation. And so somebody like Ellie, who is dealing with these emotions, I mean, she's coming face to face with the impersonation of what goes against the truth that she has.
You know, I was going to say too, like, since Ellie and Riley have never been in the world before 2003, it's even a higher unrealistic look, because how are they supposed to know that that's not what everyone looked like before the world ended, honestly? So we have that totally out there standard that's not achievable today, but even more so in that reality, that would be even completely unfathomable in that reality.
So Riley's next surprise is a stop in a working photo booth where the pair take silly selfies together, and Ellie keeps the copy of their pictures. Then Riley takes Ellie to the next wonder of them all in the form of a working arcade. Ellie can't believe her eyes and explores the arcade, only stopped by Riley breaking into the change machine for quarters. The two battle each other in Mortal Kombat 2, while we as the audience are taken out of the arcade and are shown that in the nearby American Girl doll shop, their laughter has woken up alone infected.
The photo booth scene, photos is kind of like a main part in the downloadable content for the first part. I thought it was hilarious when Riley was hugging Ellie in the photo booth and they just kind of stopped and were just sitting there, and Ellie's like, get off of me. In that moment, you knew she liked it, but she also didn't want her to know that she liked it.
But we as the audience totally know at that point Riley's cards are on the table now too.
Absolutely. She definitely wanted to be close.
Yeah, and I just loved the amount of detail that they incorporated with the photo booth, because that, at least from my memory, is like the exact photo booth out of the game. And they, had a lot of the same like poses and everything that they did actually in the game too, which I thought was really, really cool, that they really were paying attention to things like the carousel and the photo booth. And I did like the change they did with the game they played. They in the DLC, they didn't have Mortal Kombat 2. I think that's a licensing thing.
Well, because they couldn't get the rights. Yeah, it's the licensing.
Yeah, but now, Warner Bros. Pretty easy to get that.
Warner Bros. Owns Mortal Kombat, so it works perfectly. Because, I mean, really, in the 80s, in that time, Mortal Kombat 2 was the top game. So, and it was the game that inspired Neil Druckmann for this show. He could get the licensing for in the game.
Well, I liked that, we see that poster of the game in Ellie's room, and I'm sure she was like reading over magazines and stuff. And now actually getting to play it was super cool, because in the DLC, the games aren't working. So Riley basically has Ellie close her eyes, and then she like walks her through like a simulation, so to speak, of her playing the game. But it was really cool to actually have them having that experience, that memory together of playing the game together.
And I love the detail that these girls actually know fate, like all like the extra secret moves in Mortal Kombat, because that's not something that just you could know how to just do a flawless fatality just regularly. You have to know the cheat codes for that. And so it's very clear that they are so obsessed that like they were reading the video game magazines at the time, because that was the only place that people at the time could know about these little cheat codes of how to maximize this game. So it's very clear that they had been searching all high and low across the city for anything to do with Mortal Kombat. It just shows the level of just obsession that they have for it and how special this is now that they're doing it. It's a 80s nerd's wet dream, this scene. Also, can we just maybe admit the poetic justice here that the infected person is an American Girl doll? Like, that was a little detail I personally, as a brother with a sister who is obsessed with American Girl doll, that's a little detail I really do appreciate.
They always have these super tragic American Girl stories.
And they be creepy too.
Yeah.
I did not like them.
And what's this lone middle-aged man who was then infected doing an American Girl doll?
Like, I'm gonna crash here. This looks good.
So after a few more games, Ellie points out that it's late and she needs to get back to her dorm. Riley convinces Ellie to come with her as she has a gift for her. Riley takes Ellie upstairs to the food court, and Ellie sees that this is where Riley has been hanging out. Riley gifts Ellie a joke book of puns, and Ellie discovers Riley has been making pipe bombs for the Fireflies. Ellie storms off, but is only stopped by the sound of distant screams.
Her running away from Riley is exactly what Joel is trying to make her do. In a sense, not, but she then goes back because she knows how much she loves her and wants to make it right before they actually leave. And I'm wondering, were those pipe bombs in the game at all? I don't remember that.
I don't remember them being in there, to be honest.
But it makes you wonder, was one of those pipe bombs the pipe bomb that actually almost killed Tess in episode 2?
Right, because it could have been easily, it was probably the exact same make, not model, but you know what I mean? They're making them by hand in there. It was definitely like their tactic was, that's how we disrupt and take down Fedra little by little, is with these pipe bombs. But I really did like that scene, like you're talking about, Paige, where she's upset, she's running away, and then at least I kind of think she has this internal thought process of, oh, this is going to be the last time I see Riley. I don't want things to end on this note at a minimum, you know? And then when she does run back and she's hearing that screams, like, that got me. I was like, oh shit. And I, my little dumbass, like, I've played the game, I know how it goes, but it got me. And then when that, I don't know what the hell that was, that Halloween decor like pops up, I jumped. It got me. I was like, God damn it. Stupid jump scare.
It's like the only jump scare in the whole show, too. And it was just like a toy.
I know.
But it just proves that she is a young girl still trying to figure herself out. So she walks away and she just needs to cool down and figure it out, which is exactly what I do too. I just need to go somewhere and come back.
So Ellie runs back to save Riley, but finds Riley in a Halloween shop. The screams coming from a toy. This is Riley's fifth wonder, and the two confess their feelings, dancing together on top of the display cases and sharing a first kiss together. They are brutally interrupted by the sounds of a lone infected charging at them. Riley tries to shoot at it, but to no avail as it tackles them both, and they all go scrambling to get out of there. Ellie finally makes her first kill, but both the girls come out having been bitten. They sit together and accept their fate, and Riley convinces Ellie that they can't quit. They must keep going. Whether it's 2 minutes or 2 days, they can spend that time together. Riley doesn't want to give that up. They can just be all poetic and shit and lose our minds together. We then cut back to the present, and Ellie rushes upstairs, desperate to find something that will help Joel. She finally finds a needle and some thread and runs back down the stairs to Joel and takes his hand. She couldn't save Riley. She couldn't save Sam, but she can try and save Joel. She looks at Joel's wound and starts to sew.
Oof, it's a lot. I really liked, and in the game, this all happens kind of after they have a water gun fight, but they changed that a little bit. But they do have the wolf and clown masks that were straight out of the game in here. And I like that even with the masks on Ellie specifically, we can still see the emotions that Ellie is feeling when they're dancing. And we see Ellie, you know, well, caught up in that moment and a little buzzed probably when, you know, she says, don't go to Riley. And then we get to see, you know, Ellie gets to experience, you know, her first love and her first kiss and probably her first date all in one night. I really liked that. That was very similar to the game. And then I like how we get to see, you know, while Riley is calm after being bit and doesn't want to quit on their time that they have together, Ellie turns dark, turns violent. She's smashing things. But Riley is kind of the calming presence in that situation. And like you said, like we're not going to cut back to where we get to see that the person she loves most now is Joel, and Riley didn't quit on Ellie. So Ellie isn't going to quit on Joel now. That was my messaging, at least out of this.
I mean, it's a lesson that Ellie has in her bones, and that's why she fights to keep Joel alive, because Riley says, we don't give up. Even if we have 2 minutes or 2 days, we don't give up. Ellie knows that Joel is probably going to die, and she knows that she's not equipped to save him, but she does exactly what Riley told her. She does exactly what the woman that she loves told her to do. And that was to be with and fight the people that you love no matter what.
I really appreciate Bella Ramsey's acting with her body. She's very good at just showing emotion just through movement. Like with the mask on, I could tell instantly what her face was showing. And I thought it was good. Do you think that they picked a certain mask for a certain reason? I was trying to make it like a poetic, like she had the clown mask, she had the wolf mask, but I couldn't put anything together besides, I don't know, maybe Riley's the more, I don't want to say obnoxious, but like fun, live on the edge, I'm a clown.
You know, I didn't really think about it, but now that I'm thinking about it, you know, I guess you could put like the lone wolf with Ellie because, you know, Riley's her only friend. But yeah, I don't know if there is, I really didn't think about it, if there's any other messaging happening there. I also liked, you know, when Ellie returns, you know, back, you know, after she's rummaging through those drawers, which, you know, I feel like in the game, you're always rummaging through shit. That's what you do for like half the game. I like that when she returns with that, you know, Joel squeezing Ellie's hand when she came back just to kind of say like, oh, like not in words, but I'm glad you're back. Like / I love and care about you. And yeah, I feel like this whole like show is about trying to find beauty and happiness in this post-apocalyptic world. And then I was going to ask you, Paige, I know I was recognizing a lot of it, but so much of the dialogue in this episode was like straight from the game, including talking about the options they have after getting bit. And I thought that conversation felt a little bit more emotionally charged, I guess, in the show than in the game, with Riley and Ellie, you know, like crying a bit and stuff. I was going to ask, I know like last week we talked about that scene where, you know, Ellie and Joel are having that confrontation, but I was going to see what you thought about this scene, since it is, you know, pretty much straight from the game.
Yeah, no, I like this scene a lot better than I did in the game because there's a lot more emotion, like everything like that. Still hold my ground for the last scene in a couple episodes back, but this one was really good. I also was wondering, in the game, she is younger. I think Riley is younger. They're the same age. I'm debating on why they tried to bump her age up, maybe to more of like a recruiting into a different, like Firefly, like you're kind of going the military type thing. I didn't know if there was like a backstory why they bumped her age up to 17 and Ellie's 14.
I thought it was something more along the lines of, it's really hard to find someone that is going to have Ellie's respect. And I feel like the character of Riley really had that in this episode. Like even, you know, when Ellie's like, fuck you. Okay, fine. I'll walk in here. And then, you know, Riley's turn the lights on. Like that dynamic, I think, was really probably something that they were really focused on, because the actress who plays Riley really, really sold it to me. It was like, oh yeah, Ellie looks up to Riley in a lot of ways. And I think that's maybe why they decided to make Riley's character a little bit older than Ellie's. And they got to add that part too about, you know, Riley's going to graduate and then be assigned to a shitty job, where Ellie still has time to maybe figure out her options. But that's why I at least thought that they went with that route when casting.
That's a very good point. And I'm glad that they didn't make it seem like Riley was just mentoring Ellie because she's so young. She, like the actress and the character, they could tell that they both really loved her in more than way than one.
I mean, Ellie is always punching up. I mean, because she's smaller than everybody else, she's underestimated. She is always trying to be a little bit more tough and she has more bravado. She acts like she's more tough than she actually really is. And so I think by putting her opposite somebody who's just a little bit older than her really plays to not only her strengths, but also plays to what she really looks up to. And I don't think she would go after anybody that's not a little bit more than what she is. I think she's always trying to punch up her game.
That's a very valid point.
Yeah. And I like that, at least how I'm viewing it. Riley represents someone choosing the third option, forging their own path. Whereas Ellie, she's always given the option of choice A or B. You can be a manager, or you can be a grunt, you can go with Joel, or you can go with Tommy. And this episode shows that Ellie has all the choices laid out in front of her, and she chooses to be with Joel.
In the end, she does choose option 3. She makes her option 3 with Joel.
Yes. And I think, too, like we're seeing Ellie struggle a bit with survivor's guilt. Why did Riley die and I didn't? It's probably something that she's been dealing with, and we kind of get to see a little bit of that here, which I think is another layer as well.
So with that, I just want to give our last thoughts of this episode. Let us know your final wrapping thoughts of what episode 7 was to you.
With all the groups and fan pages and everything that I'm following, and I like to read the comments on just the outside world of what they think about the show, not just critic reviews, because critically it's a good show and they're doing really well. But with just the fan base, for this episode, so many people that I was reading were like, this is the most boring episode from all the season, and they should just do more with the show than just base it off of love. I'm like, you obviously don't know the creators and you don't know the game, because that is the sole purpose of this whole show. You don't need monsters every single episode to make it good. And I just keep reading and reading, and I really want to comment on everybody's and just like bitch them out, but that's too much work. They can just drown in their own thoughts. But I just want to say that for a show that is about an apocalypse and love, it's going over expectations for me. And even if it changes everything around from the game a little bit, I think they're doing a good job. And those people can go and play a different game and watch a different show.
Yeah, and that combined with like all the homophobes like complaining and review bombing this episode. Like if you don't like it, then don't watch it. But this is straight from the game. And The Last of Us episode 7, I think, is a beautifully faithful adaptation of the Left Behind chapter of Ellie's story. It's a real showcase of Bella Ramsey's ability as a performer, and we're treated to a story of young love that is, equal parts heartwarming and heartbreaking. But I think it's a necessary tale to be told, and then her sexuality has been hinted at in the past, like when Tess asked Ellie if she had a boyfriend, her parents coming after her. And, this also shows Ellie, going through a lot of firsts, besides relationship stuff, taking alcohol, handling a gun, having to kill. Little things I liked was like her having to shake the flashlight like you do in the game. You have to shake your controller a lot because your flashlight's going out. But I will say that I am hoping the last 2 episodes will be longer, because there is so much ground to cover if they're going to do the whole first game. But I think this really, Bella Ramsey really showed in this episode that she can carry this show on her shoulders without Pedro Pascal, if need be.
Yeah, I totally agree with what both of you are saying. I loved this episode, and I think what this episode does is it fills so many holes so far, so much more details that when you do go back and rewatch the entire series, as I will because this is one of my favorite shows now. It does fill in so many details and give so much context to the rest of the show. And it really sets up the last chapter of this story. And I am so looking forward to next week. I cannot get enough of this. I think that what's going to happen in the next episode, from what I've been hearing from the trailer that I saw, number one, we're going to be able to see Joel, y'all, the game version of Joel, Troy Baker. We do see him in the trailer. He's going to be in the next episode, so I'm really excited for that. I've been seeing some interviews from Troy Baker kind of talking about how much he loves Pedro Pascal, and also his thoughts on him coming back into the show for his cameo in the next episode. So I am so looking forward to that. So with that, thank you guys again for being on this podcast, for joining us in this discussion. Thank you everybody else that's listening for joining us on our discussion, and join the Cinema Club Facebook group at facebook.com/group/the Cinema Club TCC, and listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, Anchor, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. And please leave us a review on iTunes. It will really help us to reach more listeners and invite even more members to our club. Message me on Facebook if you would like to be a part of the podcast. And finally, if you haven't already heard, we just launched a new support option on our channel. So if you are loving the show and feeling a little bit generous, please check that out and consider supporting our show so we can continue to grow. You can check that out at anchor.fm/the Cinema Club. We have big plans for this podcast going forward, and we are just in the final stages of finalizing what that's going to look like. So just stay tuned. We will keep you posted with updates soon. But in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your week. We will see you next week on the next one.